Well, hello and a very warm welcome to Business Today TV. I am Chetan Bhutani. Well, Business Today TV continues its rolling coverage at the G20 summit, Bharat Mandapam at Pragati Madan International Capital. Today, I am joined by a very special guest, a veteran in the auto industry and the chairman of the Maruti Suzuki, Mr. RC Bhargava, on the latest development at the G20. Mr. Bhargava, thank you so much for joining us. First question to you, Mr. Bhargava, how do you envision the developments, especially the two major developments on the biofuel alliance and also on the economic corridor? What does it entail for the automobile sector and especially for the Maruti Suzuki?
Well, I think any steps which are taken on a global scale, which ease the business of countries working together and sharing the production facilities and the market for each other's benefits, I think is good for all industry. And what has happened in this G20 is that a lot of steps have been taken which I think will have consequences of great importance to all industry, including the automobile industry, in the coming years. Because as we have been saying from Maruti for many, couple of years now at least, India is eminently suited to develop biofuel resources. We have the largest cattle population. We have the largest agricultural waste. These are all renewable raw materials for biogas and biofuels. And therefore, an alliance in this area is of the highest importance for the future of carbon neutrality, for the benefit of the smaller car users, and for providing fuels which are totally green and totally renewable. The economic corridor, of course, has some years to go before it becomes a reality. But once that happens, it again will open up a lot of opportunities for the automobile sector and other sectors.
Sure. Mr. Bhargava, also with the discussions around supply chain resilience at the G20, how does Maruti Suzuki plan to adapt different strategies now, considering the supply chain issues have eased out? But do you think with these two special announcements, do you think in the near future we can expect for the supply chain issues to be completely sorted out?
You know, nothing is ever completely sorted out, Chetan. But we're certainly moving in the right direction. And India has been becoming a part of the global supply chains. Our auto component industry has made tremendous strides over the last few years. We have substantial export of components from India. And I think the measures which have been accepted in this G20 are all directed towards making it possible for countries like India to participate to a much larger extent in strengthening the global supply chains, de-risking the supply chains from dependence on limited sources and such things.
Sure. Mr. Bhargava, also with the announcement of that Maruti Suzuki did on the investments in 45,000 crores, doubling capacity, Maruti Suzuki is actively involved when it comes to bio-CNG and CNG vehicles. Sir, if we can expect any developments now with respect to developing ethanol vehicles, which Maruti Suzuki I know is working on, and electric vehicles also, sir?
All these technologies are of great relevance to India. And I think we will move rapidly towards the target set by government to reducing the carbon footprint. And whereas some countries are relying only on EVs or something, I think what has been happening in India and what will go forward now as a result of the G20 is that other fuels will also get equal importance. And if we combine the effect of all these fuels, I think the carbon footprint reduction will become a reality in India far quicker than anybody expects.
Sure. Also, Mr. Bhargava, with the G20 deliberations also on green financing, how do you see this development as an important factor going forward for the automobile sector? Because green financing is something that India still needs to adapt a little more and a little faster. What are your comments on that, sir?
We haven't yet really gone into this question of green fuels and financing for green financing. It's something which we will really have to look at as to what implications it can have for us. But we are keen on biofuels, and we will go ahead with biofuels.
Sure. Also, Mr. Bhargav, when it comes to the economic corridor, does companies like Maruti Suzuki stand to benefit from it? Because I know as of now, the major chunk of the economic corridor usage would be for energy, FMCG, and other products. But in the near future or in the long term future, do you see this economic corridor becoming a hub for India as well for exports?
We still have to see how this works out. At present, our export of cars from Maruti are to we have some exports to Middle East, but we have exports to South Africa, we have South America. These are all areas for us. And I think the markets in the Middle East and in some parts of Western Asia would get a benefit when we have this corridor working and we can send our vehicles and our components to these countries with far greater ease than at present.
Vargasan, technology transfer for cleaner energy solutions is also one of the key deliberations for G20,
So,
and you have also been talking about such developments. So, do you think in the coming future, automobile sector and companies like Maruti Suzuki stand to have more options and alternate options to explore possible outcomes and possibilities of tying up with different companies on that front, sir? What's the future you think?
very much so. We are, as I said, very clear in our strategy that in India we need to develop all possible sources of fuel, not depend only on one particular technology or one particular fuel for reaching our goals of carbon neutrality and of providing affordable transport to all sections of the people. And today, Suzuki already has an alliance with Toyota in Japan to develop new technologies. If we get opportunities with other countries and other companies, certainly there's no reason not to take part and get new technology into the company and into the country.
Sure. And also, Bhargav sir, if I may take your opinion on the global trade barriers. If you see that economic corridor, when it develops and, things start to move, do you think the governments in coalition with the support of each other should probably work on removing the trade barriers, be it import duty, be it export duties, be it the quality control orders that Indian government imposes frequently? Do you think the trade barriers should be removed subsequently for the various industries to perform well?
A great deal of work, Chetan, has been going on in the last few years on getting into more and more FTAs. At one time, India used to be completely against any kind of liberalization of imports and removal of trade barriers. Fortunately, the present government has had a much more forward looking and positive approach to these matters. And we are seeing that reduction of trade barriers actually benefits all countries. Of course, they have to be worked out in a proper manner. But good bilateral arrangements or multilateral arrangements between countries which facilitate trade, which facilitate specialization of production, they are all positives and which will benefit countries as well as the global economy.
Sure. Also, Mr. Bhargav, could you throw some light on what probably is the next step for Maruti Suzuki after these two global announcements at G20? First is the economic corridor and the biofuel alliance. Will you start deliberations within your company on how probably Maruti Suzuki can take the first step, as it has always been, with respect to providing biofuel cars?
See, as I said, in terms of biofuels, we're already very much involved in it. And let us see how these agreements work out. And we will certainly be in the forefront of trying to take advantage of them. As far as the corridor is concerned, I think it's a little bit too premature to think of any specific actions which we can take at present or any benefits we can get. Let something more move forward in this area before we can make any kind of positive statement on this matter.
Last question to you, Mr. Bhargav. Any comment on what the government can do to ensure any benefit to the auto sector when it comes to the biofuels policy?
I think the government is already, the fact that government has taken this up in the G20 and got this kind of an agreement is a major step forward. Because till now, uh, we didn't have this kind of positive approach from government to also get into other fuels other than EVs. The impression gathered in the country so far was that we were only focusing on EVs. But now what the government has done indicates that the government is very much open, and I think very rightly and correctly so, on all kinds of technologies and fuels. And we will work out which is in the greatest national interest, how to go forward. And we will certainly not hold ourselves back. We will move along with the rest of the country and with the government policies to facilitate what government has in mind as best as we can.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Bhargav, for joining us. Pleasure as always to speak to you, and we really hope that Maruti Suzuki soon takes the first step, as it always been, to reform the India's automotive space. Thank you so much, Mr. Bhargav.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Chetan. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Well, that was RC Bhargav, the chairman of Maruti Suzuki, talking about on the deliberations. Stay tuned to Business Today TV on the rolling coverage of the G20 summit in the national capital.
At the G20 summit here in New Delhi, at the International Media Center, what you have something very, very interesting for all the foreign delegates, for all the foreign journalists. One can really find out the history of India through these interactive LED panels where one can find out what has been Bharat, the mother of democracy. Something very interesting I'm showing you. What you need to do is connect your Wi-Fi